A hello from the temple city of India, that is Odisha. So the testimony of the religiosity of this place is strongly imprinted on my forehead because you can see the Trishul mark of the Tika, and that is from the Lingaraj temple. And after visiting the Lingaraj, I am at a place after which entire Odisha was named in the ancient times, that is Kalinga. Yes, the war of Kalinga was fought around the area where I am currently standing. And this is the Dholagiri hill, where which this is the stupa which is standing as a testimony where the change of heart occurred for the great king Ashoka. Yes, the war of Kalinga. This was fought at the exact space where I am standing, and let's see and explore what this place has to us, what the stories it behold, and what reflections I as a person can draw from this very space. So I'm here at the base of the stupa, and you can see that over here two lions are inviting us to the main focal of the stupa. And this is also emblematic of the Ashokan emblem which was taken over by India in 1950. And over there in the center also you can see the Dhamma Chakra that is being revered by the Buddhist bhikkhus who used to worship the Dhamma Chakra, and it's said to be the Dhamma Chakra Pravartana. Now I studied history and I was quite fond of it in my 12th grade and even art history. So this place holds significant importance for me. But before we climb up, I also had some insights from reading this kind of metal description describing the place. So it speaks of the history of how the Shanti Stupa at Dhauli came into existence. And it said that after Buddhism, after 2,500 years later, Buddhism would return to India, and that was around the freedom struggle. There were certain people from Japan, from the Nichiren path of Buddhism, who joined Gandhiji, and this kind of stupa came into existence. But the major stories that is capturing my interest is the same one as I was telling you about earlier, that Ashoka fought the war, and this place actually holds a testimony of how non-violence and peace should exist against violence. So yeah, it is quite juxtaposition that we've built a peaceful structure at a place that was testimonial to one of the gruesome and the most cruel and the most bloodshed that the history and this place was witness to. But let's see how this piece is standing on the ruins of war and violence. So we have climbed up the stairs, and here we have come to the Dharma Chakra Pravartana, which I was talking below, and the major deity which is being worshipped and venerated, that is Lord Buddha. Now Buddha is said to be the 10th avatar of Vishnu because that was accepted into the larger Hindu pantheon to expand the reach of Hinduism in the larger fold, they say. And another irony is that Lord Buddha said before leaving his mortal remains that I do not really wish to be venerated in forms of idols and statues, but here we are. But never mind, I think that everything is a piece of art and worship if you can imbibe the very, you can say, the qualities that the person possesses. So here is Lord Buddha. The first thing that captures my interest is the mudra that Lord Buddha has been sculpted into, and that is called as the Dharma Chakra Mudra, which means turning the wheel of law, which I was talking about, the Dharma Chakra Pravartana, or the wheel of law, which Buddhism and Buddha actually prescribed. Over there is the halo. Now halo was inspired from outside of India, but actually gradually accepted into the Indian fold. And keeping in mind this Buddha was built in the later half of the 20th century, if I have read it correctly below. I may be wrong here, but yes, it must have inscribed and taken up the best practices that were representing the amalgamation of all the historical ways of doing and prescribing art. Now let's decode the entire halo. So you can see the lotus kind of is built around in the third ring, and over there are two heavenly nymphs. Now nymphs actually have been present in a lot of Indian temples. I recently visited the Lingaraj Mandir as well and Konark Mandir. So this is quite a thing that you need to adorn the deities with the nymphs and heavenly nymphs and everything. Now Buddha is also seated on this lotus throne, and you can see the lotus petals over there. And of course the mudra is also a very yogic mudra that he's sitting, and the robes that he's wearing are slightly, if I may be wrong, inspired from the Takshila school of art. Takshila school of art which was present in the belt around Mathura and around that area. And over there below, you can see that there are devotees or the Buddha bhikkhus who are worshipping the Dharma Chakra again, if I am interpreting it correctly, because I am not a specialist but have just studied and trying to join the threads and make some substantive output of this. So let's now tour and circumambulate the entire structure and see what we can take inspiration from art, history, mythology, culture, and everything. It might be a placebo that I wanted peace and I came at a structure of peace, which stands for peace, that I am feeling peaceful over here. But there is something over here that is attracting lot many tourists, and because it might be again on a hilltop, but never mind. I started walking around the very structure and the stupa, and here you can see that Buddha's life and incidents from his entire story have been inscribed on the walls. Now I do not really know what incident they are referring to, but I can make sense of something over here. Like there are bhikkhus who are worshipping Buddha, and he's sitting on the case which is laden with elephants, lions, and whatnot, because actually it was in a forest under a tree, Bodhi tree, that he received his enlightenment. And here also we see so many inscriptions. अब ये भी नहीं पता कि कौन से हैं, but I can make sense because I have been to National Museum in Delhi and similar structures exist from different periods of time. So the other side of the story is that they say that the War of Kalinga was fought at the very area and at the very place where I'm standing. And they say that it was the ancient river Daya that was witness to this bloodshed. And the blood flowed to such volume that the entire river turned red with the blood that was there. And even behind me you can see that this area is quite green. It has farms, it has, I think the agriculture is being practiced in that area, and over there also we saw certain river that was dried under the bridge. Now the river must say is dried. We do not really know the evidence and everything, but there is a point to the story and a shade that I really want to speak about. So in the history books we read that history is commissioned by the people in power. No king would make his people right that he actually had incurred so much of violence or something was amiss. So they want to be registered in the good name and the good books in the history for the posterity to remember them. So similarly, if we apply this concept to the King Ashoka, it was only when he was fighting the War of Kalinga that he actually had a dramatic change of heart overnight when he saw the bloodshed. But did Ashoka only get this thought when he fought the last battle of his life, perhaps, after capturing entire India per se in that time? And is there some kind of a shade of political and emotional side to it, that Ashoka really wanted to be remembered in the good name that after the war, he left the war, he prescribed to Buddhism and spread Buddhism? So history is full of speculations. And the best thing is that we do not really know, because we do not have Ashoka to interview and interrogate or even psychoanalyze what he actually was up to. So yeah, it's said that there is no bigger truth than literature and no bigger myth than history. And I think every other historical monument stands as a testimony to that. We do not know the truth, and that is what they say, that अनंत पुराणों में छिपा है सनातन सत्य. इसे पूर्णतः किसने देखा? वरुण के हैं नयन हजार, इंद्र के 100, आपके मेरे केवल 2. And from these two eyes, I can only see that may it be a placebo, may it be a reality, but this is actually a pagoda of peace. And actually it is a testimony to the value of non-violence, because this has been a junction of Japan and India that made this monument come alive. So yeah, we can say that Japan's violence against nuclear weapons and India's ascription to non-violence in the freedom struggle, that is what makes this stupa today. And today it might be the emblem of mental peace from all the stress. So yeah, if you're visiting the Bhubaneswar, the city of temples, then definitely pay a visit to Dhaulagiri.